Well, welcome to Julie Gamick's podcast, and today it's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to introduce you to the Lobe Rangers. That's L-O-B-E. And if you don't know what Lobe Rangers mean, you will find out very shortly. And I have Darcy Malsby to thank for introducing me to the Lobe Rangers during a retreat we had for the members of the Iowa Writers Collaborative in Storm Lake this spring. Darcy invited them to join us, and it was absolutely a fascinating conversation. So, Darcy, I'd also like to, let's start with you, Darcy. Why did you think the Lobe Rangers are having an impact this year? What intrigues you about this organization? Then we'll get right to them.
Well, I'm a farmer as well as a journalist, Julie. First of all, thanks for having us, bringing us all together here. And I've been doing this a long time with my writing career. And I tell people what I see the Lobe Rangers doing, and that style of regenerative agriculture is the most exciting thing that I have seen in 30 years of doing what I do. And it's hope. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's hope. We don't have to live with polluted water and eroding soil. There are practical, low-hanging fruit methods to get Iowa agriculture on a better path, and it will be more productive and profitable for the farmers as well. So it's really fun to hear what the Lobe Rangers have to say, and I'm taking it to heart. I'm actually implementing a number of these practices on the acres that I manage in Calhoun County.
That's great. That's great. So Zach and Matt and Jim, if you would please, one at a time, introduce yourself, and whose idea was it to call you the Lobe Rangers, and tell us about that name to start. Zach, let's start with you.
Okay. So I'm Zach Smith. I'm a 46-year-old fifth generation farmer from Winnebago County. I haven't been always a farmer. I spent most of my career in ag retail as a crop protection salesman. I was a Pioneer seed dealer. And this is my fifth year now of farming full time. And I've been passionate about alternative agriculture for the last 15 years. I use strip till and cover crops and just-in-time nutrient management and try to be thoughtful with that stuff, not just for environmental reasons, but for economic reasons. And all three of us, just for the sake of intros, all have basically the same practices and the same theories. I can't remember the genesis for the Lobe Rangers name. I don't know I can't remember who said it, if it was Matt or James, but when we said it in a conversation, when we were trying to come up with a name for our group, we knew when it was stated that we had it. And then James gets credit for, if you've watched our social media videos, James had the idea for the whip crack, and I think we're more known by the whip crack than anything else. So people love the whip crack. And so that's my intro, and I'll let the other guys go quickly here.
Okay, Jane, how about you? Let's hear from you. I know you're busy out in the field today, so I'm going to grab you while I can.
Yeah, so my name's James Tapp. I'm a 36-year-old first-generation farmer. I farm with my wife and three kids. We have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old boy, and we just have about a 9-week-old girl now. So full house. Yeah, we're full house and busy. Like Zach said, we're all implementing all the same stuff. I have cover crops on every acre and nitrogen in season, strip till, no till, you name it. Do it for the economic reasons and for just doing it for the right reasons. So that's a little bit about me anyways.
Okay, thank you so much. And Matthew, why don't you go next, introduce yourself and a little bit about the organization.
Yeah, very similar farming background. 2011 was when we really started diving deep into the cover crops and the strip till and all that stuff. That it was more out of necessity, not necessarily necessity, but I was just going to add, corn was $7.48 the day we decided to buy a strip till bar, because we knew that there was going to be a day when corn was half that price, and we needed to learn how to manage our nutrients better. And that, it's kind of where I'd say all three of us have gotten in our farming career. I mean, there was no magical, Zach and I are fifth generation farmers, but there was nothing magical about our transitions. We had to keep these farms rolling. We had to buy what we have. It's not like grandpa just gave us something to get started on. So, you always were trying to manage fertilizer and seed and chemicals and everything as efficient as he could do. So thus he started looking to newer technologies to do that. And then now it's really led down more of the soil health side of it.
All right, I'm going to bring Art Cullen into this conversation too, because as you know, he's been writing about these issues for many years and also met with you guys when we were all in Storm Lake. Art, do you have any questions to start out, or should we just keep rolling?
No, I just wanted full disclosure. Matt Borman is my wife Dolores's cousin from St. Joe. So it's all in the family.
I
Mm-hmm.
did not know that.
And I might be related to Zach Smith. I'm not sure since his mom is a Murray and they come up from near Bancroft area up there. I might be related to him too. I'd be proud to be.
There you go. All right. So, Art, you've been following these issues for much of your career. What impact do you see the Lobe Rangers having, and what difference do you think they are making, and how?
Well, I think that they're part of a larger conversation that's going on in Iowa. That the conversation has changed in Iowa over the last 10 years. And that seems like a long time, but in Iowa thinking, it's almost overnight. And so I think what's really happening here is we're at kind of a turning point in Iowa in terms of how we approach our basic enterprise. And we're coming to terms with the corrosion that's occurred in rural Iowa, especially in communities, in the environment, in our way of life. And I think these guys are trying to address it before the midterm elections. And I think that's why they kind of got together is to talk about what are the factors that are driving rural Iowa to the point of extinction. And I think that was initially what inspired Zach Smith, if I'm not mistaken, to start talking about these issues was to get people back onto the landscape, get people back into rural communities before they just wither up and blow away.
Thanks, Art. So, Zach, I know that it's important to you all that this be a nonpartisan or bipartisan organization. How does that work? How do you maneuver a political issue in a political minefield without being partisan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, our group's makeup, for the record, we're two registered Republicans and an independent. But we're three farmers that are sick of the tribalism and the stereotypes that come with the labels and kind of how politics have evolved. And so we made a choice, like, cancer is not a partisan issue. It affects everyone. Um, what happens in the state of Iowa affects everyone, with what happens with beyond cancer, can we go swimming at our beaches and lakes? It affects both parties. And so we didn't want to be attached to any type of label because we think that does less for the cause and it stops the conversation in places it wouldn't. And so, yeah, I know we have people that are going to want us to endorse candidates, but what we're going to endorse is the truth and the of what's actually happening, and we're going to put that out in front of the general public. That's our goal over the next, 6 months and beyond that, beyond the election, of what it's going to take to turn this sort of thing around from a farmer standpoint, and we're going to be that voice. And then the people will be able to look at the candidates and decide who is going to align best with that if they believe our ideas and policies as far as moving Iowa in the right direction.
So, in your view, what is the truth?
Well, the truth is that agriculture is a reductive industry in the state of Iowa. In the fact that we've had it's great because there's a lot of money that has been pumped into the state, and we don't want to destroy it. But there's things that we could do to substantially improve, the negative externalities that the industry chooses to ignore with the things that everyone is talking about right now. And what makes our group unique is the fact that we're kind of three unicorns out here, where we have the agency to speak freely about this, meaning we don't have masters, like I'm out of the seed business. If I was in the seed business, I probably couldn't talk this way as much as what we are now. And so, what we see, the truth is, we need to address where we're at. We have a lot of politicians that claim they want water quality, but we have a measuring stick the only measuring stick that we have that we can compare against is the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy that was put in place in 2013. Iowa State University, with other researchers across the Midwest, collaborated to try to figure out how to reduce the soil loss and nutrient loss into the Mississippi River Basin. And so we have that backdrop of how to attack this problem. Originally, it was for the Gulf of Mexico, or now the Gulf of America. But we have that backdrop, except the fact that nobody is pointing out what it actually takes to achieve what's laid out in that policy to get there. And so what we're doing is, while nobody's talking about that, we formed this group to basically take that document, hold it up to what the politicians are proposing or say they're doing for water quality, and we're going to compare it against that, and we're going to let the people see the delta gap difference between the reality of that plan versus where we're at for what they're putting forth right now, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire. That's our plan.
Okay, Matt, how would you answer that question? What is the truth?
Well, the truth is we're not getting results. Art did a column on me last towards the end of summer, and we're, we're I was on the state soil and water conservation committee, and I was surrounded by some really really good people. I started that in 2021. I was appointed by Governor Reynolds as a Republican and as a farmer, because you got to have equal amount of Republicans, Democrats, and independents on it. And what really bothered me is that it was just another way to take people doing conservation and just parade them around and make it look like that was what the industry was doing. And the truth was, it's not happening everywhere, and it made me really upset. And I got mad in the fall of 2023 and left, and kind of got talking with Zach more about what we can do that makes meaningful change. So the truth is, we're not seeing meaningful change. So when you asked about the truth, the truth is, we see a press release or a field day or whatever, and it makes it look like, oh yeah, we did another bioreactor, which is great that we did a bioreactor, but that only filters 80 acres worth of water. So that's not solving Iowa's water quality problem. So we need more of all the practices all around on the ground. Zach mentioned the nutrient reduction strategy. I've heard people kind of bash the nutrient reduction strategy. Is it working? Is it not? But through our endeavors here in the last 6 months of trying to put all this together, we figured out that's actually the roadmap. It's already made. The scientists made it. So now, what do we got to do to get to it? So, like, rather than saying it's a failure, like, let's try to get to it. What's it going to take to actually get to it? And that's the truth we're seeking out.
So, James, I know you're actually doing the work out in the field today, and you're newer to farming than the other two members of the Lobe Rangers. In your view, what's the truth?
Well, to piggyback on what the guy said, the truth is Iowans deserve better. The truth is we can all do better as a farmer. And the truth is change can be difficult for these people, but we need to work together and collaborate. And the more we work together, we can follow this roadmap, like Matt said. Like we literally have the recipe. So let's just work together. And the more we do stuff, the better it'll get and the easier it'll get. And we just need to work together. So that's kind of the truth for that anyways. And I do things a lot different just because I don't have thankfully I don't have like a grandpa or someone like breathing down my neck telling me what I have to do, because I get a lot of friends that want to do what like me and Zach and Matt are doing, but they're not allowed to. So I am very, very blessed to have a landowner that knows that whatever I'm doing is best for my family and his family. So so that makes it easy for me to do some of this stuff, but it really works, and we just got to collaborate and work together.
So I'm going to open this up to other people on the call who are actually in the farming arena. Jim Sayers is a longtime reader and participant in these calls and writes his own column on Substack. Jim, do you have any comments, questions? In your view, what is the truth?
First of all, I love the Lobe Rangers, and I'll say what I particularly like is to see what's in the background. Like Matt's is a 1977 square body Chevy. Yep. So, and the wind generator, I think the last one I saw that. So I appreciate that you are real, authentic, and you have integrity in what you're saying. But my question today has to do with regulation. A few weeks ago, I was at a Boone River Watershed Authority meeting. A young woman sitting next to me works for the Iowa Corn Growers Association. After the meeting, she and I were chatting, and we were just talking about regulation. And she said, interestingly, when she talks to farmers in north central Iowa where she serves, the topic of regulation comes up, and it's not negative. And I thought, all farmers are against all regulation. However, her point was, some farmers are doing conservation and they are offended that they're the only ones, and voluntary actions in themselves are not going to come up with the result that we need. And Zach, you just said that actually. So just in general, what's your view on regulation versus voluntary? Voluntary, we could go on and on and on and maybe never have any results that are significant, right? So just that general question, please.
Yeah, so we've had voluntary optionality for farmers to opt into the nutrient reduction strategy since it came out. I think Matt and I both went to like the original announcement meetings, and I was super excited because I'm like, man, this is great. This is a framework everyone could get behind. And then we watched crickets essentially as far as progress. So like on the Des Moines Lobe, we would estimate that it's maybe just a few percentage points of acres that are actually managed the way that the reduction strategy would spell out. So, in our opinion, voluntary change is a failure, and it will continue to be a failure for several reasons. The age demographics of farmers, the scale of which farming is growing to, which makes it more difficult to implement some of this stuff. So we feel personally that the R word will have to come in if we want to address this. Now, it shouldn't be in a place that's punitive, toward farmers. Like we understand the sensitivity, and it shouldn't demonize farmers, but it should look at the science. And a lot of these things, I mean, are things that I learned at Iowa State at my great alma mater 25 years ago that haven't changed, and we're not following the agronomic science, in regards to nutrient management and putting policies in place to help us get there. And so I think it's not a popular thing to say, but it's a realistic thing to say that we will have to have policy that helps get us to the levels that it will take. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point.
Have you all been implementing these practices long enough to see results?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about those results. Is it good for the bottom line?
Yes.
Yeah.
The results are great for the bottom line. And, to dovetail, Zach and James will ditto what I'm about to say, but, we went down this road in my family as a way to save money, decrease equipment costs, all the above. But now we're seeing soil health results that are huge. And I mean, I don't know how do you put a dollar amount on it, but when you watch it rain now, for example, if we get a pounding rain, you can see the less tillage, the better soil health on display. The water infiltrates way better on the less tilled ground that has some soil health. We're watching now, it's not going to eliminate all the herbicide passes, but with the cover crops, you can see, uh, you know, the cover crops help suppress weeds, stuff like that. So that we're seeing that. Yeah. Yeah. It's making us some money.
Okay. How about you, James? Are you seeing any results so far?
Yeah. So I kind of got into it as a young farmer when I bought the retiring farmer's equipment. The big tillage tractor had seen better days, and I just couldn't afford to keep it. So I just started looking elsewhere, and that's where I kind of come into strip till. And I was able to reduce my horsepower per tractor in half, and then start going down the soil health path. And like I said, now we've reduced our synthetic fertilizer by quite a bit on both sides, dry stuff, liquid in, you name it. Obviously, no-till soybeans is just that, no-till. That saves a lot of money, a lot of passes, reduces herbicide, like Matt said. And like I would ditto on him, like how do you put a price on that when your ditches are not full of black dirt in the wintertime? There is a value to that. So
The other thing I would add is that our organic matter content is going up, which is not the same that our neighbors can claim. And the fact that we're doing less tillage and utilizing cover crops, we're actually, pumping and fixating carbon back into the ground. We've lost, I believe it's half of our organic matter since we broke the prairie 150 years ago, or whatever it was, 125. And so, we're going the right direction because organic matter is wealth. That's what makes Iowa's, soils so rich, and its water holding capacity, fertilizer holding capacity. Um, so yeah, there's definitely now, is it all rainbows and unicorns? No. Okay, that's one thing we want to be realistic. There's a lot of people in this. If you call us regen, I don't consider us regen. I don't like that word, but like there are pain points, and that's why there is resistance to the change because it is different. And we've definitely learned some hard lessons. But we would all say we're financially better off. And from a productivity standpoint, I mean, farmers are bred to produce things, right? That's what their identity on, how many bushels an acre. And, we have grown some absolutely phenomenal yields, utilizing these practices, above county average. For us, this is a message of abundance at all levels in Iowa. We can still be abundant and produce a lot of stuff, but we can do it in a lot more responsible manner.
Okay, great.
Zach, if I may interject here, what kind of yields are you seeing on your closed loop stock cropper system where you're fertilizing, stripping, and then growing corn? What kind of corn yields are you getting on that
Well, all right.
system?
I'll preface this by saying that I developed a system called stock cropping over the last 5 or 6 years. It's not a scalable system in the current form for a lot of reasons, so I'll preface it with that. But we've grown 434 bushel corn and set some records at some of the national agronomy farms, that some of the major ag companies. So it is possible to produce a ton of stuff in a regenerative fashion. But there's a ton of reasons because of what has happened in the system of what makes it hard to scale, like the livestock integrators that control the packing industry. There's not a place for an independent hog farmer to grow hogs on pasture and take hundreds of thousands of them to market. So it's there's possibilities, but what our group is focused on, I would love to see what I've developed, scale, but we have to see things where they're at today. And right now, the way the Farm Bill is written, and it's probably going to be written for at least the next 5 years when it passes here this summer, is that we're going to be a corn and soybean state. And so we can wish for the moon that stock cropper is going to be the thing, but the reality is we need to do something now to stop the bleeding in the corn soybean CAFO system.
So I want to get back to that farm bill question in a minute, but Darcy, let me pull you in to answer that question. Have you been doing this long enough to see results?
We just seeded our first cover crop last fall, so that was around October 8th. So remember, we're going from a conventional system into more of this. I know Zach doesn't like the term regen, but I'm just going to use it for right now because I don't have a better word at the tip of my tongue. So we seed this three-way cover crop mix. And the gold standard when you've got a good, healthy, functioning soil is to have basically the texture of chocolate cake is an easy analogy. So when I'm out there digging in the field this spring and this summer, and we're checking what's going on in that soil, we've got the chocolate cake texture. We've got the wormholes showing that the earthworms are working for us, which helps with the water infiltration and breaking down organic matter and whatnot. So the short answer is yes. I am absolutely astounded at how quickly Mother Nature will start to heal itself when you work with her instead of against her.
Well said, well said. So I'm going to ask all of you, Darcy and James and Zach and Matt, if you were advising candidates on both sides of the aisle running for Congress, what do you think the Farm Bill needs to do in the next generation? Okay,
Well,
Zach rolled his eyes. That means you go first.
yeah, well, so everything in the state, I shouldn't say everything, what we grow in this state is dictated by federal crop insurance. And right now, it determines if you want to get financing in the state, there's two crops that you can grow to be backed by a banker with any success, and that's corn and soybeans. And until that changes, that is what we're going to grow, and that is what people are going to try to find uses in homes for. It doesn't mean that we can't grow other crops in Iowa. My great grandfather farmed back in the teens and the 20s, and in the 20th century, he had a whole multitude of crops. He had pasture, he had barley, he had flax, he had wheat, he had corn. He had alfalfa. He had a whole host of stuff. So it is possible to grow those things here, but we do not have the markets currently. And part of the reason is because the farm policy doesn't allow farmers to get insurance on some of the lesser crops. And so while we could use things like rye or barley and hog rations for feeding hogs in Iowa, we don't. We primarily use, corn and soybean meal to make that. So, and it would take an overhaul in the policy specifically around crop insurance to change the farm bill to bring more diversity back into what farmers can get financing for. It's such a big part of the deal here. But we've selected for just two crops, over the last, whatever it's been, 50 years, and that's why we just have two right now. So
when you talk to candidates or office holders about this, I assume you have you talked to them about crop insurance and making changes?
We've had some conversations, but we're primarily focused just on state issues right now in Iowa. But for the folks that are running for Senate and House races in the state, absolutely it's relevant. So
okay. So when you go out and do talks, I assume that you guys are doing that as much as you can. Do you encourage people who are there to show up at the candidates' town halls and ask some of these questions?
Yes, but by all means, yeah. We're getting to get more chances to go on podcasts and do talks. So yeah, the people need to show up and be at town halls and whatnot. But I think what they really need is they need to have a list of actual policies that would make meaningful change. And we're working on that right now to try to have some ideas that could actually make it happen, because everybody could sit around and say we need more bioreactors and we need more cover crops, but how are we going to actually do it? That all sounds warm and fuzzy, but somewhere the rubber's got to meet the road. And as far as the farm bill, I would love to talk more about the farm bill, but we're trying to elect people that really don't have any influence on well, I mean, they could have some influence on the farm bill, but they're not the ones that are going to be setting it. We're trying to figure out what to do about the water quality crisis in Iowa. So what could the Iowa citizens do and their legislators to try to have an effect on that?
James, any thoughts from you about the farm bill? If you were in Congress and you had a voice, what would you do?
Well, that's a tough question. I agree with what the other guys said, and we got to get back to principle too, and start feeding ourselves and get markets going again. Start looking at all the stuff we import and say, can we grow that here? And if the answer is yes, then get to it, get markets going. But this stuff will take decades to do. I mean, it's not an overnight kind of deal. So it goes back to collaboration, working together, see what we can do. But like I said, it all stems back to, like Zach was saying, about the crop insurance and getting the guarantees and stuff like that. So it's a loaded question.
I want to have a follow-up because I saw it pop up in the comments here. It said there's a fourth branch of government that controls the farm bill, and that's corporations, and that's 100% right. And if we want to solve any of this stuff, we need to overturn Citizens United first. That would go a long ways, because there is such a corporate. Three farmers are not going to change the farm bill. Okay, we have no money. We're just three voices putting out ideas. Like we're up against the Goliath of Goliaths when it comes to the ag lobby, and until we make a change in how that works at the federal level. And that's why we're not spending a lot of time. It would be nice to influence that, but like I said before, the farm bill is already written. I think for assuming it passes this summer, it'll be in place for the next 5 years. And Iowa doesn't have 5 years. We need to act now, and that's what we're hyper focused on, is at the local level. We may have a chance here to make some influence. So.
And Julie, I would jump in talking about the local level. This is something James and I have talked about. So we talk a lot about cover crops, but let's be honest, a lot of farmers don't have a lot of experience, sometimes no experience with cover crops. Managing a cover crop is just as important as managing your cash crop. Like you can make an argument it's actually more important. And yet we are giving people cost share dollars and we're turning them loose and saying, oh, go seed a cover crop. Well, that's great, but there are management considerations and there's timing and there's a lot of things that you need to do right to have a successful cover crop. So maybe some low-hanging fruit is to say when you get some cover crop cost share, there's a training that you need to go to so you kind of get up to speed on cover crop 101 rather than us just wasting taxpayer dollars on cover crops that may or may not grow.
What do you see, all of you, or any of you, as the biggest impediment to change here in Iowa?
Fear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say
Fear
lack
of
of.
failure.
Oh, go ahead, Zach, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
I'd say lack of will and fear of failure. I'm watching more people in this farming industry now that have no desire to try anything. They just go on this hamster wheel year in and year out. You know, on the lobe of soils, you know, I'm in Kasuth County. The ground gets worked, you know, it gets worked. It just keeps perpetually, the anhydrous gets put on, the hog manure gets put on, and there's just no questions asked. Like, I mean, I don't see them even trying a cover crop. Try a cover crop in the back 40 acres where nobody can see you fail. Or just like things like gully wash.
Leftover? We don't need them. We'll eat them tonight.
What's that?
Things like, oh, there's somebody that didn't have their mic muted.
Sorry.
But things like cover crop or waterways. I mean, we've been getting asked in our comments about waterways. We got a video we're going to work on about that. Like, I've been plowing. I plowed and raised a plow when I was 10 years old when Dad had waterway. Waterways have been around for 50 plus years. And every rainstorm, if we get a 2-3 incher right now, this afternoon, we're going to have washouts, and the farmer's going to work right through it again this fall, and no change. Like if for an industry that doesn't want to be regulated and wants to be independent and rugged individuals, like do something that demonstrates that you don't want the regulation. Like show the people that you're doing something that you actually want to make. You don't want the regulation.
So, if a member of or if an executive with Farm Bureau was on this call right now, what would they say in response to what you're talking about, Zach?
Yeah, I don't know what they would say. I don't know. What we're trying to do is construct arguments that they can't say much against. We were all members of Farm Bureau. James still is. So we have a pretty good understanding of how the organization works. I would, the thing we always tell people is, we are just three farmers. We all are college educated, we have backgrounds in this stuff, but we're not perfect. And if we're wrong about something, we want to know. But so far, we haven't had anybody point those things out. And, I don't know. I'm going to defer. The other guys say, like, what do you guys think Farm Bureau would say if we were in the room with Brent Johnson right now and having this conversation?
They would probably just talk about our massive increase in cover crops from 1% to 2%, probably, or that would be. Oh wait, that's what they already do. Sorry.
Yep.
Ralph, you're laughing over there. I'm going to pull you into this conversation because you're a former legislator and you are very active in environmental issues. What's your take on this conversation so far?
Well, I know I've interacted with these guys before, and earlier I posted some of their websites, and I encourage people to follow them. And unlike Art Cullen, I don't think I'm related to any one of these guys. I just mostly know them through Zoom. So if they're related, I don't think they're related to my farm relatives in Michigan, but who knows? The only thing I disagree with them, and I wrote about, is I think these three have a lot more influence. The issues that they're talking about is coming up even in urban areas and not just small town areas. And I think that people just need to press on it. And, Iowa passed great laws in the 80s. They raised fees and taxes on ag chemicals. Farm Bureau fought it, saying there was no problem. And after a while, it worked for several decades. And then Iowa State abandoned its support, and the legislature pulled most of the money from it. It was the Leopold Center. And what these guys are doing is what the Leopold Center talked about: sustainable agriculture that's both economically and environmentally sound practices, and that it was funded through ag chemicals. So the more ag chemicals you use, you're going to be paying more through fees and taxes. That's kind of a regulation. I would like to. I mean, part of me wants to hear more about policy, but I have a real practical question. How often do either of you guys get asked to speak to Iowa State University?
We're Iowa State University Learning Farms representatives from our counties. So, but where does when you go to a meeting like that, it's structured to, ask you questions about like, how do you feel like using trees that you clean out of a fence line ground up for a bioreactor? Or how do you feel like, I don't know, some sort of pollinator on the edge? The meeting, it's none of it is bad, but it's like, it's all stuff we want to talk about the big freaking issue in the room, and that's water quality. And what are we going to actually do to solve it if we want to solve it? And if we're not going to do that, I just as well learn how to golf or work on my old Chevy pickup. And, and Iowa State there's stuff they're doing. And, I think some of their information and their expertise gets bastardized by what people want to listen to and what they don't. I mean, you can pick and choose bits and pieces out of what they would recommend for nitrogen. People are like, oh, that's too much, and then the next person says, oh, it's not enough. They pick and choose what they want to listen to as far as Iowa State goes.
The thing I would say is, yeah, no, we haven't been asked to go speak at Iowa State about anything, and I don't know what we're going to teach them because they taught us the same agronomic principles, that they know. I think the biggest issue is it's not an Iowa State problem only. I mean, there's corporate capture of the universities too, and their funding in a lot of cases is, contingent on what they say, and so what makes us different, and we know this because there are people at Iowa State that have privately reached out to us, encouraging us to keep going with what they're doing because we're saying what they probably can't afford to say because we don't have any masters. Nobody is paying us. We're not looking for funding from, corporations, and so we're trying to say the things they probably want to say. And we're holding up the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy as the example of the science that they put forward, but maybe it's hard for them to say that in the room with Farm Bureau on the stage. So
let's follow the money for a little bit. Tell us who profits from the current status quo.
Well, the system stays the same. You were asking, I was going to say that on the Farm Bill thing, but I didn't want to keep it going. So whatever we're talking about right now, Farm Bill, water quality, whatever it is in Iowa, the system profits. The machinery manufacturers keep making tillage equipment and big tractors. The banking system keeps going. The herbicide system keeps going. The fertilizer system keeps going. Everything keeps going as it is. It's not perfect, but then there's not this fear of somebody missing out or a business going under. And I really think that's why this system keeps as it is. I think the corporate machine is bigger than Farm Bureau because I spent 14 years on Farm Bureau and there's some really good people doing that. But as far as Farm Bureau goes, the farmers don't want to change. That policy is sacred and it's done very, very well. I mean, when Farm Bureau gets policy, it is the farmer voices, and the farmer voices don't want change and they don't want regulation. And as soon as you'd get enough farmer voices that would admit that we need to do something, that whole operation would change overnight. And I think it's getting closer. When I used to do it, I would argue that it was all of 40% of the actual farmers knew that we had a problem. And then they would always worry about, well, how are you going to do the regulation? How are you going to enforce it? There were ideas to tie crop insurance to conservation, but then the idea always was, well, how do you enforce it? The bottom line was they didn't want it, but that was always the argument. But I think the industry itself is way bigger than the actual farm lobby groups, and they got a lot of money.
Okay, Bryce Oakley, you have your hand raised. Go for it.
You're talking, I think, around this issue quite well. After all, it's a public policy issue, and it's clean, affordable, universally available on-demand water. That's the way I would define it. In my some years involved in political policy making, I make a list of who's got a stake in this. There are 8 elements at least. I just wrote this down in about 5 minutes. Farm operators, both absentee owners and on land, farm suppliers, including financiers, farm product sellers and processors, farm product customers and consumers, water consumers, wholesale and retail, technology entrepreneurs, think data centers, water suppliers, government, both administrative and political. The question that Julie asked at the very beginning is, how would you address those that are running for public office with regard to the water issue? I think I would start about what critical mass of those stakeholders would you help pull together in order to solve this problem over time? And that would be the one question. Secondly, I would ask people running for public office, how are you going to fix Congress and many state governments so that they can actually develop and adopt and finance the solution to the issue that you're talking about? So I think we got to start at 10,000 feet and asking these people on both parties, who would you pull together and what kind of direction would you give them? That's my view.
Okay, looks like we lost James, but Zach and Matt, go for it. Oh, and Tom Martin, we'll get to you next.
Yeah, it's those are really hard questions. My gut reaction, I'm not saying this is the right one, is I don't know that we're going to get a lot of cooperations or corporations that want to align with the Lobe Rangers. It'll probably be a pretty short conversation. Maybe I'm wrong. We haven't had any of them reach out to us, nor have we tried to seek them out. You know, our goal is by raising the voice and taking it back to the people. And I don't think we have the legislative makeup right now to do any of this stuff. And even the two gubernatorial candidates, neither of them have policies they've put forth on water quality that would make meaningful change. And we're going to point that out very, very forcefully over the next 6 months. So our goal is we're going to try to show the public who elects people and puts them in power, and try to get organized to a point where we can have a significant enough voice using kind of the social media strategy, and hopefully, we'll be able to get maybe some additional funding to get the message spread better, to show people and encourage people to run for office, because this isn't going to happen. We're not going to fix this by November of 2026. We really don't probably see real change happening in Iowa till maybe 28 and 30, but we have to know where to go. And right now, none of the politicians really even know what we're talking about with the delta difference between the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy and everything else. So we feel our purpose is to help educate folks to the reality of what it's going to take. And then that way they can start going to these town halls and asking really hard questions. If you say you're for bioreactors, that's great. Ask the gubernatorial candidates, how many bioreactors would it take in the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers to expect a meaningful drop for the Des Moines Waterworks to take nitrates out of the water? Well, if you don't know that answer, well, then your policy probably isn't sufficient for that. So, that's what we're going to try to put forward to give people, power to ask the hard questions and really push these people from an information standpoint, so that, they're either forced to concede what people want, which cancer and water quality is a heck of a lever. And so we're intending on speaking the truth, and hopefully it impacts voters, but also it impacts people to actually run for the legislature. That's what we need more than anything. We need a flippening of both parties, in my opinion, to get people in that actually understand this issue and have the courage to stand up and put forward the policy that's going to help us get there.
Matt?
Well, I'd say then as far as to get the people organized, I said it before, what policies are we going to put forth? It's one thing to say we're going to do it, but then what are we going to actually do? I know you guys are going to ask, but we're working on our policy ideas, and one of our policy ideas is an disincentive type of policy, where if you're not aligning your nutrients, mainly nitrogen, with the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy goals and objectives, that you would pay in a disincentive. So if you wanted to apply anhydrous on November 1st prior to the crop year, you'd pay in some sort of user fee, and then the people that are trying to get to in-season nitrogen practices could take that same amount of money out of the pot and buy themselves new equipment to get to in-season. The co-op or the retailer could take some of that money. So our ideas are a self-funded mechanism where the state doesn't have to pay for everything. So the people not aligning with the strategy pay in, and the people that want to upgrade can get money out. Like I was saying, the retailer can upgrade facilities to get to in-season practices. And I would argue too, these farmers know there's a lot of farmers that are reaching out to us along with the public, but we are getting a lot of farmer support knowing that changes need to happen, but they're scared to death to talk about it. And a lot of them don't really know what they actually have to do to make it happen, which is just appalling to me that we've had this nutrient reduction strategy since 2013, and we still have people that don't even know what cover crops are. That's something you should just know right now.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Martin, you had a question or a comment?
I have a question, yes. The question is, how many acres do each one of you farm? And my thought then is, all of these people, Farm Bureau, Big Ag, all of that. But one thing that I've not heard mentioned is the increase in the size of farms. When we sold our family farm, there was nobody in the room that was a family farmer like you guys that wanted to bid on our farm. The only people in the room were the people that already owned, and the people that ended up buying it already owned something like, I don't know, 10 or 12, 14,000 acres of farmland. So we know that in Iowa, the size of farms are increasing. And back in the day, when I talked about this with our tenant, he gave me the theories behind why he didn't want to do it, and it had to do with the time that it takes to farm that way rather than the old way, I'll say. So how many acres do you guys farm, and is the size of the farm, is this way to farm an impediment to increasing farm sizes? That
I'll
makes
take
sense,
a
because that's the
yeah.
way the state of Iowa is going, whether we like it or not.
Okay, James, you're
I'll
back
take a
on.
stab at that one. Yeah. So the size of the farms are I mean, I literally have friends that are farming over 10,000 acres doing these kind of practices, which really shoots holes in the boat that this is not sustainable and you can't do it on big acres. So that's the thing. And literally a lot of these practices it literally says it in the term, like no till is no till. So you're going to save a ripper pass and a field cultivator pass, and you might turn that into one strip till pass. So to me, that's more time. That's like 2 + 2 is 6. So the acre, but like I said, it takes a little bit more management and specialty. But I think if you add up all the oil and the fuel and the labor and all that, you're still money. I know I'm money ahead. So, but doing it the traditional way is easy and it's comforting, and change is hard. I mean, I don't like doing all this wild stuff I do every year because I don't really have a lot of people to bounce ideas off of. But it goes back to collaboration. If we have some good ideas now, if we get hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people doing it, we're going to do nothing but get better over time and get better and better, and things will get easier. So that's why I kind of sound like a broken record, but we got to work together and collaborate.
How many acres do you farm?
I farm 1,600 acres.
Oh, thank you.
Now, Tom, I don't know if this is accurate, but Mary Garst pulled me aside one time at the age of when I was 28 years old, and she said, "Julie, you never should ask somebody how many acres they farm because it's like asking how much money they make." I don't know if that's still true, but maybe.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
The only reason I asked the question was my history, that I gave you a short recap. And
yeah, no, I'm not. I think it's a great question. I'm just saying that might be why they're not answering.
Well, and that's fine. If they don't want to tell me, that's fine. It's none of my business. But I'm just curious because, as I say, how applicable is this to people that farm 15, 20, 25,000 acres.
No, it's a
Yeah,
great
so
question.
Iowa to do that.
I will answer that directly. So I farm 1,200, and I would posit that once you get probably over 2,000 to 2,500 acres, there is a line. I'll disagree with James a little bit. I know he has friends that farm at 10,000 acres, but those are anomalies. That's not the norm. There's very, very few large operations in the state of Iowa that are farming, north of even 5,000 acres that are doing this stuff at scale. In my county, I have one farmer friend that is that way. The largest operations aren't, and there's reasons for it. James is 100% right. There are definitely operational efficiencies. The problem is a lot of these things required more skilled labor. And when you're farming 10, 20,000 acres, the reality of it is you have one or two boss men that may be part of the family farm, and then you have a bunkhouse full of South Africans that have been brought in for H-2A labor because we can't find the labor, that is reliable enough and willing to come in and work during the seasonality of things. And so, and there's a speed factor. Some of these things are tougher to manage, and they produce challenges where farming with broad acre tillage is just easier. And putting fallen hydrous on is, if you're farming 20,000 acres, you can't plant your corn in 4 days. You can't. It's the logistical scope of it is tougher to deal with, and so those are the reasons. That's what I said earlier. Like the idea that we're going to voluntarily change due to the demographics of too many old people holding the reins and farm scale being what it is and growing in the wrong direction. It's impossible. It's ridiculous when the Secretary of Agriculture stands up and says voluntary change is working. It's a fool's errand.
Yeah.
It's not logical. And so now I will say I have a very good friend who farms 12,000 acres right now who wants to try to find a path. But it's not as simple as, unwinding all of it is a very, very difficult thing when you have, millions and millions of dollars of machinery and infrastructure in place. It's not just as simple as, doing that. And so we need to be thoughtful and we're, putting together policies to understand the realities of what we've allowed to happen in this state.
So
And
size is a problem then in moving the state towards this type of farming.
I think so, yeah.
I would add also if we're able to get, like we talked earlier about crop insurance changed and make farms more profitable, maybe a guy doesn't need to farm 20,000 acres either, which would be a nice thing too, and get more people out on the rural landscape like we talked about.
I can't disagree with that at all.
I agree 100% because some of us have talked about where's that next generation of farmers going to come from? I truly believe we could be in danger of running out of farmers because I'm a child of the 1980s farm crisis. I'm an anomaly that I'm still back here living in a small town of Lake City, living on the farm. We've been telling our kids in the state for 3 generations now, leave the farm, leave the small towns, go to the city. There's no future for you out here. We're going to reap what we sow, but I'm still optimistic that if we can get serious about the things we're talking about today and show people, just like James, he's the perfect example for this. He was a town kid. He didn't think there was a path forward, but there was because of this retiring farmer who he has children, but they didn't want to farm.
Yeah.
There are ways, and this is how I think we're going to keep rural Iowa and thus the whole state of Iowa viable. But it's much bigger. I know water quality and cancer, they're huge topics, absolutely, but it goes even bigger than that.
We had, in ours was we were fourth generation farmers, and there was nobody in my generation that had any children that wanted to farm. And you talk about you're telling your kids to leave. This is a whole other subject, but if anybody ever wants to know about Iowa and what happened to Iowa, read this book. This is the story of how we got from small town Iowa, family farms, grandpa's farm, to where we are today.
It's the title
Following out the middle. That's the story.
Following
right
out the
there.
middle.
Okay.
Yep.
Who's
And
the author? Who's the author, Tom?
Well, the author is that's Hollowing Out the Middle by Patrick J. Carr.
Okay.
And I talked to him one time and shared my story with his, and he agreed. This is my story as to what happened to me when I was a kid growing up in Conrad, Iowa. That's why you're telling your kids, get out of farming, get out of Iowa. This is how we got to where we are today.
Okay,
That's
thanks,
right.
Tom.
It's crazy. I would just add real quick, as I drive the countryside, we've got the richest land in the world. We should be some of the most profitable, healthy people on this planet. Policy has gotten us in the wrong direction, but
Yep.
it shouldn't be this way.
Darcy, what would you do if you were in Congress and you were on the Ag Committee? What would you and you had power to actually affect change? How would you rewrite that farm bill and the crop insurance legislation, etc.? What would you do?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a historian, not a policy maker, but the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to start teaching people our history. I go around the state. I just gave 2 lectures in the last few days in Harlan and Ottawa, talking about a little bit about our ag history and how it all ties into where we are at today with some of these challenges. People are hungry for this information. We don't even know where we've come from and where all these issues, why we're facing these issues. There's a severe lack of education. So that's where my passion is at. You've got to know that your history to know where we're going.
Okay, thanks. Zach and Matt and James, if you would please tell us the genesis for the name of the Lobe Rangers, what you hope to accomplish, and how people can help you.
Well, the name came from the Des Moines lobe of soils, which stretches from basically, I always say, from Highway 71 to I-35 down to Terrace Hill, roughly. It's 5 million acres of Iowa's most fertile farm ground, and that's about where the watershed drains to. So we were trying to come up with a name, or BSing one night about all this. It might have been me that accidentally said the Lobe Rangers, and then thought it was dumb. And then it's like, no, that's a genius name. And James had the whip crack, so that's where it came from. And as far as where we need help, I mean, if we're going to keep doing this, we need people to help spread the word. I would say, as far as a group of journalists, I think we need help of. I'd like to see a more realistic idea of what we can do farming. I mean, we're not going to convert this state to tomatoes and apples. Like, we're a corn and soybean and hog state, and I know it. We don't like it all the time, but I mean, what can we do to make this better, rather than going on some of these tangents that it's going to be years before some of that stuff ever happens. We've got the problem right here now that's more of a result of a monoculture of corn and soybeans. So let's focus on what can we actually do. But more cover crops, in-season nitrogen, better decision making, on the land is what I'd really like to see people start focusing on. So then we can drill down with legislators on what to do. Because now the way we're going, when we just have all these spaz ideas, I mean, our detractors are just laughing. Like, what? They don't have to do anything. I mean, you can have whatever Art Cullen or any of us write, or any of you write it. It's not gonna be a drill down, real issue changing thing. It's just a journalist or a group of farmers like us asking for something. So we got to get a common message of what we want that's going to keep the state viable, and kind of work with what we got.
Zach?
Yeah, I would add on and say, we are in the process of forming a 501c4 because if we're going to be serious about this, we will need the ability to take, hopefully donations from folks to help us. We've done a good job kind of as three farmers right now, but if we're going to take this to the level that we want to, it'll take additional funding. And so I guess I would ask for folks to stay tuned to that. And beyond that right now is just helping us with the social media. So if you
Oh, you need
we're
it now.
working
You need it now.
we're working hard right now to try to get 2 to 3 posts out a week to kind of talk about these topics. And so if you can, the biggest way to help us right now is to share, like, comment, to help push the algorithms on Facebook, Instagram. That's where we're at right now. And so, whatever you can do to support us with that, that would be fantastic. So,
Can people sign up to receive these emails, and if so, how?
what emails are you talking about?
Well, are you sending out regular newsletters or anything like that?
No, wait. So what I would say is if you go to the loberangers.com, we do have a newsletter sign up. We're not actively using it, but we are compiling email addresses on that website right now. So when we get to the point of launching some of this stuff and launching our policies, we will communicate for folks that want to follow along and learn more.
Okay. Just a suggestion, if you're ever interested in how to do Substack, let me know and I'll walk you through it. But it's a good community to be a part of. A lot of interesting folks who might share some ideas with you.
Sure.
James, any final comments from you? And then Art, I want to ask you to I'd like your takeaway from this conversation, but James, any final comments from you?
Basically, we would appreciate any kind of support. Basically, just follow us on social media. Whoop, did I lose you? There you are.
No, yeah.
Follow us on social media, like and share it, make comments, ask questions. I think us being non-political and just going down the middle of the road, no matter what party you're part of, I think that's really important to reach across the aisle. I mean, even, talk to people at church, talk to people at the coffee shop and just say, hey, cancer is not political. Water quality is not political. What's your point of view? What do you think? Why do you think that way? I think we've got to a culture where if you disagree with someone, you have to hate them. And I think we just need to, kind of just extend the olive branch and talk to each other and ask questions and have good feedback, because individually we're not going to change anything, but if we all get together, we will, and it'll be nothing but positive things. So that's what I'd like to do. And like I said, what the other guys said too, we will probably need some funding at some point, but just ask questions. And this is the most questions I've ever seen in the ag industry ever. I'm sure like Darcy would agree with that too. Like before, no one ever asked questions. You just assumed everything was hunky dory. So it's really nice to get questions out there and just see what happens, see what they say. We can all do better no matter what.
Thank you. Brother Art Cullen, what's your summary of this conversation?
Well, it's very interesting. These guys know what they're talking about. And one thing that strikes me, it has for a long time, is that if you pay farmers to grow corn, they're going to grow corn until it's coming out your ears. If you want them to grow grass, pay them to grow grass. But we talk about cost share, and we don't talk about making farmers prosperous. We talk about, here, we'll share in your costs. How about let's help you build profits? And we don't hear a lot about that. And so when you're talking farm bill discussions, remember, farmers will grow what you pay them to grow. And we're paying them to grow corn and soybeans, as Zach pointed out. If Dennis Keeney, the founding director of the Leopold Center for Sustainable Ag at Iowa State, which was eliminated, Ralph Rosenberg referred to it. Dennis Keeney said we need to reduce our soy corn monoculture by 30% in Iowa to relieve the suffocation of the Gulf of Mexico. So think about that. That 30% of our crop acreage probably ought to be put to grass or pasture, according to Dennis Keeney anyway. Those are some of my takeaways.
Okay, great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, all of you. And just we about doubled the number of participants on the call per usual. So that tells me there is a real interest in this topic. So thank you all for what you're doing, and let's keep on keeping on.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.